So trusting that everybody can see me. Thank you very much for joining the webinar today, everybody. I hope that it ends up good use of your time. I'm going to share out some of the insights and best practices that we've learned over our time in helping credit unions and banks help staff and members migrate to digital channels. But before I get started, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about my background and the company and kind of how I arrived at this webinar today. Early in my career, I was a corporate trainer training large corporations on how to use SAP. So I have a background in software training, but I left that in 1999 to start a company which is called Launchfire. It's still going today, and it builds game-based digital promotions. And we do that for large consumer packaged goods, restaurants, and retail marketers. And this story will make sense in a second. The programs that we build for those guys are designed to engage and educate consumers so they buy more stuff. And so fast forward to 2005, and it was that educate piece that kind of got us into the e-learning space. We were working with the Tylenol brand to promote their new rapid release pill. And we built a digital promotions for it. And the Tylenol sales manager played the game and said, this is an incredible educational tool. Could we morph it into an e-learning program so that we can train sales reps on how to position the pill in the marketplace? So we said, yeah, I guess we could do so. So we customized the program and morphed it into an e-learning program and rolled it out. It turned out to be the most successful training program Tylenol had ever run. And I think it was pretty novel because we got picked up by a few industry publications. After that, we did absolutely everything we could to ignore the business. But despite our utter neglect and worst marketing efforts, we kept getting a trickle of clients for the game-based learning side of our business. So it kind of got a little more serious about 5 years ago. We were working with MBNA on their college campus promotion program for their credit cards. And they got acquired by TD Bank. So the VP of marketing became the head of digital at TD. And he contacted us and said, the TD's big challenge was they were having trouble driving adoption of their online and mobile banking amongst their customers. And he wondered if we could do something to help. So we thought about it, and after sort of digging into it, we didn't believe that a digital promotion made sense because, of course, it reaches a national audience, most of whom wouldn't be TD's clients. So we dug into it a little more, and what we realized was people who aren't using your online and mobile banking, those folks are coming into your branches and they're calling your contact centers. So we suggested to TD that the best solution would be to educate their frontline staff and turn them into ambassadors for their digital products. So TD agreed that made sense. And we further learned that actually TD employees don't have to bank with TD. So for many of them, if you don't bank with your employer, of course, you're not going to understand the tech. So there really was a need to drive an understanding and knowledge and awareness about the products amongst staff. So we did that. And it was pretty successful, and actually we did really well. And then TD said, we want to roll this out more broadly. And we went, uh-oh, because we hadn't really built a scalable solution. It was a ground up solution. So we asked for a bit more time, and we staffed up, and we built LemonadeLXP, which is a learning experience platform that was built specifically to help financial institutions with the human side of digital transformation and digital fluency. At the same time as we built the learning experience platform, independently and kind of serendipitously, TD Canada had hired us to build a bunch of technology walkthroughs and simulators of their mobile app and online banking and so forth. So we built hundreds of those over a couple of years, and it cost an awful lot of money. And then, of course, as always is the case, the tech changed, and we needed to go back and change all the walkthroughs and simulators that we had created at great expense, which of course wasn't well received by TD. And we realized at that point, this is a common problem. And so we decided to softwareize that process, to build a platform that allows you to quickly author walkthroughs and simulations of your tech and change them when your tech changes. So we built that platform. And that's kind of how we ended up being, I think, the only company in the world that has a learning experience platform and a digital adoption platform all built specifically for financial institutions. So that's how I ended up in this conversation. A little bit of background on me. So before we get started on sort of what we see working in the recipe that's been successful for us in helping staff and members migrate, I thought we'd just run a quick poll question. So Sophia, if you could pull that up. So the question is, how much of a priority is digital transformation for your credit union in 2021? And, you know, the more we talk to clients, we are hearing that it's a pretty high priority. I think things have changed over the last couple of years. And as more and more challenger banks and challenger institutions come up, and as well as payment solutions and so forth, the digital transformation has become an even bigger priority. So I can see that most listed as a high priority, and the next most, 25%, is crucial. So I think this kind of marries well with what we're hearing in the industry. So I think we can probably end that poll now. And so, sorry, I'll just jump into, I'll show you the results first. So 41% high priority, 25% say it's crucial. And so that really marries well with what we're hearing. So I'll just stop sharing that. So I wanted to talk a little bit about COVID's effect on digital transformation and migration to digital channels. As you can see from the graph, I pulled this off the Financial Brand. You know, this is specifically speaking to mobile banking, and 6% used it for the first time through the pandemic. 24% used it a lot more often, and 20% are using it more often through the pandemic. So that's 50% of customers either using it for the first time or more often. So that's a pretty significant shift in how people are doing their banking. Jumping next to sort of what people are predicting they'll be doing post-pandemic, you see that the use of mobile banking more than I did pre-crisis, 32%, using online banking more than you did pre-crisis, 26%. So 60% of people can plan to continue using digital channels. So, and I've read in a few publications that COVID has sped up digital transformation or migration to digital by, as some are saying, 2 years, some are saying as much as 10 years. And certainly that's what we're hearing from our FI clients. So it turned out that we ended up with a software that was pretty prescient when COVID hit. So I want to talk a little bit first about the member experience. And I think the member experience, I mean, this is what it all boils down to, keeping members happy as they transition the way they bank. And it's not an easy thing to do. And it's something that a lot of financial institutions kind of weren't ready for. So the challenge is, you know, pre-COVID, the big challenge was that, you know, really old habits die hard. Like if you were to rewind 18 months, most of our clients were saying, how can we make more customers and more members use our digital channels? And, you know, they were facing things like new tech's intimidating, people don't like change, all these types of obstacles. And at the same time, very few credit unions or banks have digital support tools. They don't have tools that support their front line so that they can support members as they migrate. And so through the pandemic, what that meant was you had this massive rush of folks moving to digital. Nobody had support tools and information, so you ended up with long contact center wait times and high volumes. Now, all those calls weren't necessarily all about digital banking, but a good chunk of them were. And so we were able to kind of bring some aspects of our software to help. But that's kind of the challenge that we come across quite frequently and have over the last sort of 12 months, 18 months. So the first thing that we recommend is use of a digital adoption platform. And the one we built basically has a repository of walkthroughs and simulations of your technology so that members can very easily learn to use the tech. And it also allows you to create an online hub to house all those. So that's also branded, searchable, WCAG compliant. And the reason that this is so important is, as we talked about, you know, intimidation of new technology and aversion to change, and then frustration when you can't use tech, having a digital adoption platform kind of allows you to improve that member experience because it gives them support tools, but it also improves the employee experience because those frontliners can also use it. So I'll talk a little bit about why walkthroughs and simulations are such a crucial part of the recipe that we're having success with. So the first one is they do an excellent job of driving organizational alignment on digital. And this is really important. So as you roll out digital technology for your members, they're going to, when they go to adopt it, they're going to need support, and they may get it from different channels. They might get it from branch, they might get it from contact centers, business advisors, a number of different people who work at your institution who might support members as they try to migrate to digital. And it's important that everybody's on the same page, that the messaging is consistent, and the understanding of the tech as it's conveyed to your members is consistent. And that's what a digital adoption platform and tech walkthroughs and simulators do. When they need to support somebody, they can reference this. Everybody references the same tool, so the message is the same. The next thing it does is provide a risk-free environment for both staff and members to test the tech and just test drive the tech, I mean. People want to be able to touch and feel it before adopting. And the challenge with the real world environment is people are afraid of making mistakes. So this kind of overcomes that big challenge of the intimidation of new technology. And through allowing people to test drive the technology, we show the ease and convenience of doing transactions with it. And I think it's that, taking away some of the fear and then showing how easy and convenient it is, that makes members much more comfortable as they adopt the technology, which improves the member experience. So the digital adoption platform essentially is a handy 5-in-1 tool, and I'll kind of explain the different ways that you can use walkthroughs and simulators to support members and staff. Before we do that, I was just going to run another quick poll for you. So Sophia, if you could pull that up again, please. Okay, so it says, what tools does your credit union have to help staff and members migrate to digital? And so what we see is, some don't have any tools whatsoever. Many are using sort of web pages that are kind of like, they're pictures and text. They're kind of like an old VCR manual. I know I'm dating myself by saying that. And the problem with that is not that many people love reading manuals. So I don't think it's the most effective way. And then the more advanced folks are using videos, and videos are okay. The limitation there is you're not really in control of it. It's not interactive. You don't really get to try the tech. But the bigger issue is when your tech changes and you need to change it, changing a video is expensive and time consuming. So it's really hard to have your support tools launch on time as your technology changes. And it's also prohibitively expensive. So our preference is interactive walkthrough. So I'll just click, can we end the poll now, Sophia, and see how we did? I'll just pull that over. So 33% using web pages, 33 videos, so pretty even there. And about 16% of you are using interactive walkthroughs. So pretty consistent with what we found, the vast majority using the web pages and the videos. So we can end the poll now. So I'm going to jump in and explain the different ways that you can use technology walkthroughs. So the first one is your branch staff creating ambassadors. So I mentioned earlier in the presentation, the digital laggards, the folks who aren't using your tech, where are they? They're calling your contact centers, coming into your branches. And so turning that branch staff into technology ambassadors can be really effective for helping improve that member experience. But in order to do so, they have to experience the technology and they have to understand the technology. Nobody's ever going to recommend a technology they're not familiar with, and they're certainly not going to be able to support it. And if you put yourself in the shoes of a teller at a branch, imagine a customer comes in to deposit a check and you say, yeah, you could have done this using remote check deposit. Well, no one's ever going to say that if they don't know how to use the technology, because they'd be worried that the member is going to say, Oh, sure, great. Show me how to use it, and then you don't know how to use it, and you don't look too clever. So you have to sort of have a little bit of empathy for what that frontline staff is going through, and in order to create the ambassador, they need to experience the tech, and so that's where walkthroughs can be really handy. The next place we see them being used an awful lot is in contact centers. And so, again, to talk a little bit about sort of being empathetic towards their experience, many of our clients, the credit unions and banks, many staff are working from home, particularly contact center staff. So they don't have that kind of shoulder to shoulder colleague support that they enjoyed at the office. And at the same time, they don't have very many support tools to help them migrate, nail that member experience as customers migrate. So the walkthroughs allow them to get on the same page with the customer really quickly. So imagine a member calls in and they say, I'm having trouble paying a bill. And I can say, well, tell me exactly where you're having trouble. And they can describe the screen they're on. I can go to a walkthrough and select that specific screen that they're having trouble with and walk them through how to get to the next phase of the transaction, and then walk them through the completion of that transaction. And so what does that do? It reduces talk times, it de-stresses the situation, and it improves the member experience. And I think that's kind of what it's all about. The next place we see it being used a lot is in marketing. So driving awareness and trial. So some of our clients will take their walkthroughs and so in a lot of cases, clients are running awareness stuff. So it might be email marketing. The big fancy ones might be running television commercials. But what that does is drive awareness, but not really trial. So instead of just sending an email out saying, we've got online bill pay, your email can go out and say, see how easy it is to pay a bill using our mobile app. And the member clicks through and it takes them right to the walkthrough. And they actually complete a transaction right there, showing them how easy it is to do that. And that'll reduce that sort of new tech anxiety and build the type of confidence that people need in order for them to try the tech. So that's kind of 3 ways they've been used. Also for new member acquisition, if you think of any prospective member, when they're deciding who they're going to bank with, they're also deciding what fintech they're going to use for the next very long time. And many of them would probably like to try before they buy. And so I think allowing them to experience your tech and see how easy and convenient it is will help them make a decision about which financial institution they want to go with. And I think it also shows a commitment to member experience from your credit union. So it can really help with that new member acquisition piece in taking away some of the mystery of what your fintech's all about. The next place that it's used is in sort of chatbots, where we've had customers who integrate links to technology walkthroughs and simulators within chatbots, so that when a member says, I'm having trouble with the mobile app, it can recommend a simulator or recommend a walkthrough. And so that's another way that it's being integrated into the member experience. And then the last one is into employee training. So the technology walkthroughs can also be used as content within a course about digital, for example. So a lot of different ways that tech walkthroughs can be used, which is why we see them as such a crucial part of helping members migrate. So that's kind of talking a little bit about the member experience and how tech walkthroughs and simulators can really help demystify the technology and take away some of the stress. But the next piece in a solid member experience, I think, starts with a good employee experience. Employees are the means through which most members will experience your credit union. And so having a knowledgeable, confident frontline staff that can support your digital products is really crucial to driving a good member experience. But there's a dilemma there, which we call the digital dilemma, which is that not all employees are necessarily members of your credit union. And so if they're not, of course, they lack experience with the tech. And then compounding that, not very many credit unions that we've met have great digital training. And that's largely because you don't have necessarily modern training technology. Most authoring tools and learning management systems aren't equipped with modern tech that allows for compelling and effective digital training. And without the training and without the ability to understand all the information about the technology and try it, it's hard to create that aha moment for your frontline staff so that they get to the point where they're sufficiently knowledgeable and comfortable that they can both promote and support the tech. So at this point, I wanted to roll in our next poll question. Sophia, if you could bring that up for us, that would be great. So in this one, I'm curious to know how fluent your frontline staff is on your digital products. This one's interesting because, it's amazing how often we talk to organizations who would say that their fluency is, 60%, 55, 60, 65%. So there's a hole there, especially as we're trying to create a great member experience and moving over, yet still the frontline isn't quite where they need to be. And as we look at the results here, I see that it really mirrors what we're hearing. I said 55 to 65 here, 70% of people are saying some staff have experience using it. So really in line with what we're seeing in the marketplace. And so there is a bit of a hole in frontline training and staff training on digital. And that's kind of about culture change. It's about creating an environment where digital is top of mind and where everybody understands it. So thank you, Sophia. I guess we can show the final results, which show 71% some staff have experience and only 8% say it's excellent. So little bit of a need there. So thank you for that, Sophia. So now I'm going to talk about the recipe that we use for driving the knowledge and confidence amongst frontline staff so that they offer that great member experience. So the first thing that we, as I mentioned, Launchfire is a game-based digital promotions company. So game-based engagement is kind of, it's in our DNA. And we use that for the foundational knowledge aspect of digital training. So, what are the limits on remote check deposit or bill pay or whatever? There's limits, policies, procedures around digital that have to be taught. And that's not typically the most engaging information. So that's where game-based learning can be really effective, and for a bunch of reasons. First of all, game-based learning is inherently bite-sized. So instead of bombarding people with a whole bunch of foundational information and expecting them to retain it and be able to regurgitate it to customers, we break it into small bite-sized learning that people can take, within the flow of work or when they got a little break at work. The other thing about game-based learning is, unlike most teaching in life, it embraces mistakes. When you were in school, every time you made a mistake, the teacher would put a red X on whatever you did wrong, and it was really perceived as a bad thing. Game-based learning, on the other hand, every time you make a mistake, it actually gives you some feedback on why you made that mistake and how you can fix that mistake. And so it's really taking advantage of mistakes, not wasting a good mistake, if you will. And then the last thing is, game-based learning kind of gives you a score and gives you immediate feedback. And a lot of people want to master these things, and so they'll play a few times to maximize their score. And it's through that repetition that we see actual retention and better learning outcomes. So for the foundational knowledge, our recipe, game-based learning, works really effectively. And going back to the walkthroughs and simulators, they're the next piece of the recipe, but the difference is, in our platform, when you author a walkthrough or simulator for the digital adoption platform, it's kind of like a guided tour. But when it's for the training platform, it's challenge-based. So basically, it challenges you to complete transactions in online or mobile banking. And each time you make a mistake, you kind of get a worse score. So people will do it multiple times again, so that they actually learn to use the tech and they can make mistakes in a risk-free environment. And I think that is a really great way of making it fun for people who have otherwise no reason to try and understand your tech. It makes it fun for them to do so. And so by doing that, we drive a more tech savvy frontline staff that improves the member experience. So The recipe for us is um, game-based learning for foundational knowledge, walkthroughs and simulators to drive product knowledge. But the next one is, how do we teach frontline staff to naturally and elegantly recommend the technology and support it in the real world? And so what we've done is build in role play scenarios that you can author in the tool that allow you to create lifelike scenarios where either a member comes in and wants to do a transaction, or a member has contacted you and needs help using the technology, and it's sort of a virtual role play. And pre-pandemic, a lot of companies did live role plays. The problem with those is they always feel a little hokey. Both parties know the other party's acting, and it feels a little uncomfortable. Moreover, next gen folks, with each passing generation, they prefer digital, and for a bunch of reasons, but not the least of which is being able to practice in an environment where they're not embarrassed by their mistakes. So these role play scenarios can be really effective for creating a better member experience, and also driving the sort of knowledge and confidence in your frontline staff so that they're comfortable both promoting and supporting the technology. The next piece of our recipe is a central narrative. So most learning systems are really just a repository of training content. And when you're trying to drive engagement amongst your staff with your digital stuff to create a sort of digital culture, um, there's sometimes a bit of resistance. As I mentioned, digital can be a little intimidating. And the central narrative part of our software really solves that. And it doesn't have to be what we've done. We've created a game around it that is built in the image of today's most addictive mobile and social games, but it provides context for the training. So when you roll it out and you're trying to drive awareness of the program, you're not saying, come learn about digital, you're saying, come play, which creates a much greater level of participation and awareness amongst your staff. But it doesn't have to be a game. It could even be just a skills engine that shows people how they're progressing. There's a lot of different ways you can create a central narrative, but it's really contextualizing all the training that you're asking people to take and giving it some type of purpose. And for us, it's a central narrative game. And what it does, as I mentioned, it drives awareness and participation, but it's also kind of a little bit addictive. So people come back every day and they play multiple times. And so what that does is drive distributed practice that really makes training stick. So for us, the central narrative is a really crucial part of the recipe. So that's kind of our learning recipe for digital. I think that it addresses a lot of the key things that we need to tackle in order to drive a great member experience through our frontline. But then the other side of it is our folks in our training departments and heads of branches and operations and retail and so forth. They're the ones stuck with rolling this stuff out. So what we've done is we've built a content exchange. So if you can imagine that each of our credit union clients has their own instance of Lemonade. And then on top of all those instances is a content exchange. And that content exchange has a repository of ready-made content that you can download into your credit union's LemonadeLXP instance. And then you can edit it if you need to. And then roll it out to your frontline staff or your office staff as well. And we're making regular additions to that. So they're just little modules of training that you can sort of cherry pick and use for your needs. But we've gone a step further and we've created pre-baked curricula. This is the one we have for digital. We have a lot of clients that are using LemonadeLXP for stuff beyond digital, but its sweet spot really is digital. So we have a number of different curricula, and what it basically is a roadmap of how to use the content in the content exchange. So once you download the pieces of content, it tells you what order to put them in to create a logical curriculum that ladders employees up to the digital expert level that you need them to be. So we've really baked everything in there in our recipe to help credit unions drive fluency as quickly as possible so that our frontline's nailing that member experience. And then the last thing I'd highlight is Lemonade comes with rapid authoring tools. So you can very quickly create all of the types of content that I just talked about, role play scenarios, game-based learning, technology walkthroughs and simulators, coaching and mentoring, all sorts of different types of content you can create in there. And that's really important right now because we've got a really fast changing business environment, not just due to COVID, but in the US there's a new administration. So there's changing regulations and rules and policies. So being able to roll out content quickly is really important for keeping your frontline staff as knowledgeable as possible, which is the key to sort of nailing that member experience. And then of course, being super fast at creating content helps reduce production costs, which is always a thing, is saving costs. And then lastly, the ability to easily update your courseware. So as things change, as your digital products change, or as the policies around them change, you can very quickly change your training so that your frontline staff is completely up to speed on where you're at today with your digital. So that's our recipe and what's been working for our credit union clients and our bank clients, frankly. At this point, I would open it up to any questions that anybody may want to ask.
All right, thank you so much, John. That was a wonderful presentation. So we did have a few questions come in. The first one is, what size of credit unions have you worked with?
Good question. Credit unions of all sizes. Like biggest one being Boeing Credit Union, and all the way down to credit unions that would be sort of 100 million in assets. So we've serviced credit unions of all different sizes.
Great, thank you for answering that. So the next question here is, how long does it take to deploy a digital academy?
The Digital Academy is really fast. We can have you up and running the next day, and then creating technology walkthroughs and simulators really is very, very quick. When we were building them ground up for TD, it would take a week or 2 weeks to build each one. Now you can do it in under 30 minutes, and the authoring is so simple that most of our clients don't even require training or onboarding. So you can be up as quickly as like getting you an instance. It literally takes us no time. All we need is a URL. Once it's up, it's just a question of authoring the content. And so, we went live with one of our customers recently, everything authored from start to finish in about 6 days. And they had a good number of technology walkthroughs and simulators. So it's very fast.
All right. And do your clients author the content themselves?
Yeah, some do and some don't. So in numerous occasions, we've been asked to author content. We do have a content authoring team, but we also have lots of clients who prefer to author their own content, and they've got training folks on hand. So we just give them a little bit of a walkthrough of the technology, but really it's so simple that quick walkthrough of how to use the tools, and they're off to the races.
And do you have any walkthrough templates already built for some of the major online and mobile banking providers?
We haven't got that yet, and it's a great question and a bit of pouring a little salt in my wound. I've been trying to forge partnerships with the fintechs for quite some time because I know we have a tool that would be really helpful for their customers, but I haven't been able to break through there yet. So hoping to be able to do that soon.
Perfect. And I'm seeing a few other questions here, mostly around pricing. So if anyone does have any questions like that, feel free to note it in the post-event survey. And also, John, if you don't mind, we'll go ahead and provide your contact information and some of the post-event for anyone that does have some of those additional questions.
Yeah, of course. Happy to answer any questions. Anybody who would like to see the platform, we're happy to set you up with a demo. And if you're just looking for information on sort of how content is being used and what kind of results people are getting, we're happy to share that as well. Whatever we can do to help.
Perfect. Well, it looks like those are all the questions that we have for now then. Once again, if anyone does have anything that they'd like answered offline, just be sure to note it in the post-event survey, or go ahead and send John an email, and we would be happy to help. And once again, thank you so much, John, for a wonderful presentation. And thank you so much to everyone on the line for tuning in. And I hope you all have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you very much, gang.
Bye. Take care.